Among the issues expected to play a huge role in this year's elections is a woman's right to bodily autonomy. The overturning of Roe v. Wade angered women across the political spectrum, including Trump supporters. But how will it impact their decision in the voting booth? NBC News held a focus group in the swing state of Pennsylvania with that very group, women voters who chose Trump in 2020 but do not agree with the Supreme Court's decision. The focus group was produced in collaboration with Engageous, Syracuse University, and Sego as part of the NBC News Deciders Focus Group series. Their answers were pretty stark.
I know I'm a woman and I should have more of a say about it, but honestly, it doesn't matter that much to me as it might matter to someone else.
Yeah, it's not one of my high concerns.
It's not that important. I hate to say it, but overall, it's probably not going to determine who I vote for.
It means nothing in the grand scheme of everything to me. I'm going to vote for who I think is going to do the best for my family.
Joining me now is Yamiche Alcindor, NBC News Washington correspondent. Surprising, fascinating stuff. I guess maybe not so surprising. Tell me what was found in this focus group. Give me more info here.
Well, Joy, this was a fascinating focus group because, as we said, this is women who don't agree with overturning Roe v. Wade, who voted for Trump and who live in Pennsylvania. And the headline out of this was they do not believe that Trump is to blame for overturning Roe v. Wade, even though he was the person who put the justices on the Supreme Court who were able to get Roe v. Wade overturned. And even though he's proudly said, I am proud that I overturned Roe v. Wade, it's really, really stark. I want to play a moment for you that really made me gasp. Take a listen.
By a show of fingers, who would say former President Trump is at least partially responsible for Roe v. Wade being overturned by the Supreme Court? So none of you would say that he's at least partially responsible for it?
Maybe just a little bit because of his Supreme Court nominations.
Now, Joy, take that. What is a very, very good question to that. Now, they were twisting themselves into pretzels, saying that they still support President Trump, and they were blaming it in part Democrats for the reason why Roe was being overturned. Of course, Democrats who've been pushing for abortion access. Take a listen to that moment.
We nominated the people to the Supreme Court who were more conservative, but we could go back and say that Ruth Bader Ginsburg could have stepped off the Supreme Court earlier and they could have got the liberal judge, but she didn't resign.
So there you have it, Joy. They are really pointing to Democrats. Go ahead.
It is amazing. Okay, so they blame Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I think there was a lot of liberals who would also say they wish she'd resigned so that President Obama could have filled her seat. I think that's neither here nor there. But the idea that they don't blame Trump at all, I mean, he did pick the three people who wound up on the court. Do they not think he knew that they had an abortion stance that they had? Is that it? Did they think that he just didn't know what their views were on abortion?
It's interesting. They said that they thought either he maybe wanted these people, but maybe didn't really understand what was going on with Roe v. Wade and didn't know that they were going to do this, or they're just not taking at face value the fact that he's saying he's proud of it. Because on the campaign trail, President Trump, former President Trump, is saying he's proud. And some of them said, well, really, he's just saying that for the crowds. He doesn't really mean it. They also were making light of the fact that they don't like the way sometimes that he talks about women. Some of them said he was rude, that he was disrespectful to women. But they also said, well, he's a man of a certain generation, so that's how he acts. So again, twisting themselves into pretzels to staunchly still support him. The other thing that's interesting is that they said that abortion isn't a top issue for them, that even though they disagree with Roe, they said that the border security issues and immigration are their topics, and also the economy and inflation. So that's sort of what we heard over and over again from these women, who the majority of them said that they will vote for former President Trump.
No matter what. Let me ask you this. Were they asked about the E. Jean Carroll case, about him being accused of sexual assault?
They were asked about it, and most of them said that they did not agree with the verdict. They also said that E. Jean Carroll was given too much money, and that they really thought that this was really all a publicity stunt. In some ways, they were buying into this idea that former President Trump is a victim and that he is someone who's constantly being attacked by left-wing people, and that E. Jean Carroll is part of this grand conspiracy theory in their head. But Joy, I also want to bring to your attention the fact that these women who say that they thought the Dobbs decision was decided wrongly, they agree with the idea that a national abortion ban could be in effect. They said that they would support the idea of a national abortion ban if it was up to 15 weeks. So if it was 12 weeks or 6 weeks, they might not agree with that. But for 15 weeks, they did. So take a listen to some of that sound.
If all the states were at 15 weeks and it was a national 15-week ban, who would support that? Show of fingers. Every state had to be at 15 weeks.
With the stipulations, right?
Yeah, with all 3 stipulations, with those exceptions. So 7 of you. Okay, 7 of you would be comfortable as long as all the states were at 15 weeks.
Yeah. I wish we had more time, but we are out of time. Yamiche Alcindor, this is fascinating stuff. Thank you for bringing it to us. A reminder to all of you, those women are going to vote. Make sure you vote, too. Thank you, Yamiche Alcindor. Well done. And